Hello, my name is John Brink, and we are on the Brink, our podcast from Prince George, Northern British Columbia, and we have a very, very special guest today. Her name is Kimberley Kenyon, and she is a paddle boarder. And if somebody says, okay, what is a paddle boarder? We're going to talk about all of that and then many other things. So, Kimberley, welcome to our podcast.
John, thank you so much for having me here on the podcast in your beautiful location here in Prince George, up in the new apartments downtown on the end of George Street.
On George Street of all the places, and we can look out, if we look around, we see Prince George. It's a fall day, and we have a lot of internationals watchers as well. So if we look behind us, we see the surroundings of Prince George. Yeah. And Prince George is so unique because it's Northern British Columbia, an amazing countryside all around us. There is forest, there are rivers, there are lakes, thousands of lakes, and one of the most beautiful places in the world.
I would agree with you about that, John. Prince George is so centered to Northern British Columbia that within 3 to 4 hours on a weekend, over for holidays, we have so much access to different mountain communities, to different lakes, to different rivers, just so much different recreating up here in the north. And due to, the logging industry, our access has been given to us because there's been industry up here allowing and opening more access to this wild country.
Yeah, and as they build roads to harvest the forest or replanting, there is more and more access. Yeah. Now, Kimberley, were you born in British Columbia?
Yeah.
And were you born in Northern British Columbia?
I'm born here in Prince George, and some people say that they're sorry for me, but I just let them keep that mentality because home is pretty amazing.
Yeah. Now, the interesting part, and again, we have a lot of international watchers or people that are not familiar with where we are. We are 800 kilometers north of Vancouver in British Columbia, and we are precisely in the center of British Columbia, also 800 kilometers east of Prince Rupert and of the Alberta border.
Yeah.
And to the north is the Yukon, an amazing countryside, very, very big. Now, when I came here in 1965, the normal question would be, if you saw somebody, they would say, when did you come here and when are you leaving? It was a boomtown, right?
Yeah.
A lot of forest industry, and they were building and lots of jobs, and then the city gradually over the years, matured into where now it's an amazing community. It has an amazing university, one of the best ones in Canada, colleges. It has all that infrastructure. And George Street, where we are located now, used to be where all the bars were and all the drinking spots were. And Friday nights and Saturday nights, you wouldn't want to get close to it because God only knows what would happen. Now it's developing into a real nice area.
Yeah, and that's definitely the development of it. I've been here my whole life. I was away for maybe 6-7 years during my 20s, but now I see in the last decade the growth of the city, of the actual downtown, of Prince George establishing itself with culture, with music, with activities, with festivals, with outdoors groups, and we see expansions in the winter and cross country skiing and the mountain biking community. Everything is actually growing here, and people are coming here to stay.
Yeah.
Is a big thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, the other interesting parts about Kimberley is that we, at the Brink Group of Companies, we have already for quite a number of years, we identify people that are athletes in different sports of all descriptions, of all ages, all genders, that we recognize for what they have accomplished. And you were recognized by our company January 2021. So I already know you a little bit from that, and since the time we stayed in touch a bit, and obviously this is the first time that we have the opportunity to sit down and talk about all the other things in your life as well. I remember from that period, and when I'm referring to are you from the area, and you said for 6 or 7 years you were not here, I believe you were in another most beautiful place in the world. on the west coast of British Columbia, and that is Tofino.
I spent some time in Tofino, definitely. That's I'd say that's where my love for water really grew. That's where I kind of got my feet wet and where I first learned how to surf. So I spent time when I wasn't working in Tofino and chasing some of the surf around the world too as well. So
How long were you in Tofino?
I was in and out, so I'd spend like anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks at a time.
Yeah.
And then I would be just basically surfing the whole time and enjoying and trying to give back to the local community.
Yeah. Now, Tofino, again, for those that are watching us, is one of those most beautiful places in, there's so many in British Columbia. It's such an amazing province. But Tofino, again, is on the west coast. It is north of Victoria, and on the Vancouver Island, and an amazing community, highly desired for tourists, an amazing access to the ocean, and a beautiful community, right?
Yeah, and then the access to the west coast out there is really something that goes unseen. Like Tofino is one spot on the island, but seeing the whole of Vancouver Island and its ruggedness is a whole nother level. Like I tree planted on the island for 6 seasons, so over 6 years I spent time throughout Campbell River, just outside of Victoria, tree planting, and as far north as a small little community called Was, which is still kind of dear to my heart, and all the way up to Port Alice. And then if you go further, I actually spent time off the northern tip of Vancouver Island all the way up the coast, getting close to Prince Rupert as well, like in and out of all the inlets, doing remote tree planting blocks. And the beauty of the remote west coast from there to Rupert to what we call Haida is you won't find anything like that in the world.
No, and you are absolutely, totally right.
Yeah.
There is nothing like it. And for the people that are watching, that are planning holidays, wherever they may be in the world, to Canada, other than the obvious thing about Canada as a whole, British Columbia, and I'm somewhat biased about that, is the most beautiful province. The island is extremely special, and all the history around it, and old growth forest, and there is an industry as well, a logging industry that logs timber. And then what happens a lot of times is, especially with people that young people that are paying for their schooling, they go do tree planting. That is, for every log or every tree that we take down, we replant about 3 or 4 again to make sure that there's always new growth of forest. And but it's a hard job, right?
Some people call it backbreaking because you have to bend over to plant every tree.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, it is a hard job for sure. And I think
you did it for 6 seasons.
I tree planted for 10
Yeah.
in total. So, and I also foremaned as well during that time. So I ran a couple crews and then did like just a touch of supervising through that and worked in the health.
You were pretty young then.
Yeah, I think I started when I was 18.
Well, that's good stuff.
Yeah, so I planted for a lot of years,
Yeah.
and then foremaned and took part in that industry.
Yeah.
And I think it really shaped what I wouldn't give it up for the world now, because I think my level of tolerance, like my level of patience for uncomfortable situations, it just grew. Like I just now, if things are uncomfortable or difficult or things change, you just kind of go with the flow.
Yeah.
Because so many situations can be so unpredictable.
Yeah. You learn to do that through all that amazing experience. Another thing for young people, again, get into situations that are challenging. And the other part that I always say, because, find your passion, find something that you really like and love to do, and then become very, very good at it. And you did that in a number of ways. Obviously, you do it with all the things that you do already, but it may be tree planting. And then the one thing that happened to you, you fell in love with the water, obviously from your time in Tofino, started to do things on the water. Is that where waterboarding really started for you?
So yeah, so I surfed, and then I also spent some time teaching in Mexico at one point, and then I came back to Prince George, and I kind of didn't really know what I was quite doing with my life at the time.
2012?
No, I don't even know. I'd have to think about it for a while. So yeah, and I didn't really know where I was at or what I was doing. And then the gentleman I was dating at the time and was with, he said, well, you can surf on the rivers. And I looked at him and I said, okay, what do I got to do? And that became the growth of this sport that I'd never really heard about. You know, when you think of stand-up paddleboarding, the first thing that people envision is someone on a lake paddling around, calm water.
That's what I would think of.
Yeah. So that started the growth of, okay, well, if you can use these paddle boards, you can use these like oversized surfboards to actually surf on a river.
Yeah.
And I can do that here in Prince George.
Yeah.
Of all places. It just kind of blew my mind. So that became the cat chasing the mouse as to like, okay, how do I get to this point where I can actually surf on a river and do that here locally?
So the person that you met, so you went to Mexico for a while. Were you paddleboarding there then as well?
No, I thought they were silly. Because I saw a couple people out there with paddle boards, and they're like, why would you paddleboard when you can surf? Yeah. And then that's just kind of, shifted.
Is that the surfing came also from Tofino, right?
Yeah, I learned
because
to surf in
Tofino
first.
is known as one of the most unique places for surfing. And the people that have as a sport or a hobby or profession for that matter, if they always want to find the best places to surf. Tofino in the world would be one of those as well, right?
Tofino is definitely known for its surf and its easy access, and the diversity of the coastline actually gives you different types of like breaks throughout.
Right.
So there's multiple places to surf there, and depending on which way the swell is coming in off the ocean and the wind, you always have a decent place to actually catch waves.
And that makes it unique.
It's very unique. There's not, I think every place that you surf, but there's something about that West Coast and how rugged it is that just it just like encapsulates you and makes you want to go back. So.
Now the last time that we talked, this was in January or so, you also told me something about Vietnam.
Yeah, I went for a little trip to Vietnam to just to do some surfing and some traveling. It was quite short, but it was fun to go explore and be somewhere warm again to surf. So yeah. So you were then paddleboarding, or was it? Not yet.
No, you were still not until you came to Prince George, and your partner at the time was into paddleboarding, and he said, why not do this?
Yeah, so he was kind of self-teaching himself at the time, and
he was pretty good, right?
He was good, like he was better than me.
Yeah.
But he was still learning as well, because he used to kayak, like whitewater kayak.
Okay.
So his whitewater kayaking, he was applying to stand-up paddleboarding.
Okay.
And transferring his skills over.
Okay.
And then he was taking those skills and trying to transfer them and help me learn as well, which, like, that man has a lot of patience.
Yeah.
So because I can be stubborn sometimes. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of how that transitioned, was his whitewater experience of whitewater kayaking or rafting. You see people like parading down the river on like a big inflatable boat, and everyone's paddling. Like that's what he used to like partake in as a guide.
Yeah.
And he learned how to kayak. So he was really into the rivers.
Yeah.
And then when he found out that I surf, he's like, well, you can also do this on the river, but you need to kind of learn how to paddleboard before we can really, like, you got to get some skills together before we can really apply them to the whitewater.
So kind of sounds to me that it involves a lot of being able to read the water.
Yeah.
You know, if I look at water, to me, water is water, right? And then there's, in a lot of ways, okay, good. But that's not how you look at it. You look at it in terms of finding the challenges and seeing what you can do with it, because that once you get further into it, it becomes critical in terms of how you,
Critical is a very, very, very good word.
Very appropriate.
Yeah, there becomes a point when you start to paddle on rivers, there becomes a point where you're stepping into different, what they call the international like water classification when it comes for rivers.
How do you call them?
It's the international scale for rivers, and
Yeah.
it's for the different classes of
Okay.
them.
Yeah.
So there's like class 1, which is just like easy flowing, like
Yeah, yeah.
slow moving water.
Yeah.
Class 2, you start to see some like waves or some features.
Right.
And then like class 2 plus, it becomes bigger. Then you go into class 3. Class 3, you start to see where you have to go a certain direction,
Right.
but sometimes you can avoid the really big stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And then class 4 becomes your consequence level goes way higher. So
Yeah.
there's more likely chance that you'll get hurt in class 4. And there's only one line. And if you're not on that line, it's not going to be a lot of fun. And class 5 is like the possibility of drowning and the possibility of not getting through. Like you have to be extremely skilled to paddle class 5. And you work through each class slowly and methodically.
Yeah.
To master each step of the way.
Yeah.
Because sometimes if you step from being a class, like a solid class 2 paddler,
Yeah.
and you decide you're going to try and paddle something that's class 4, like
Yeah.
or on the high end of class 3,
Yeah.
like you're probably you very highly likely might end up in a situation where you could be in big trouble.
Yeah.
And that doesn't just affect you on the river, it actually affects everyone else around you, because you don't paddle alone on the river.
Right.
So you have other people there, and those other people, if something does go astray, are your rescuers.
Yeah.
So like it's respectful to actually slowly progress and master each level of the water.
Not overreaching.
Not overreach. And I think sometimes that happens to people in whitewater, is they overreach a little bit and they get scared and they don't come back.
Yeah.
So
I'm not sure I like that part of it. So it's a sport that is, the way you're talking about it, it's an international sport.
yeah, there's people in Japan doing this. There's people in, where have I seen, New Zealand, Australia, that are paddling rivers. There's throughout the UK.
Is the World Championships and all of that sort of thing?
For whitewater, I don't know if there is anything major. I know for what they would say like racing, there's more of a larger international community that's recognized. Right. The whitewater is still growing. It's coming, like the competitions are coming for when it comes to whitewater. But it's more the big ocean races and the flat water sprints that are more...
It kind of reminds me in a way when they are, I don't know how they call it, but if they are skiing, the skiing of all different sorts that were Olympic sports, now they are including going up and going around and then back down the other way and all that sort of thing. All that has evolved into further. Is this something that is just a question of time until it becomes an Olympian event?
I think the Olympic events will come with it, because I think recently this year we saw skateboarding and we saw surfing enter the Olympics a little more.
Yeah.
Like we're seeing those sports starting to grow to a point where now the world access and the world stage is big enough that it's at that level. And I know that there was 2 governing bodies that were kind of like picking at each other as to who was going to be in charge of the rules for stand-up paddleboarding when it came to
for Canada,
for the Olympics.
Oh, for the Olympics.
So there's 2 governing bodies that were kind of at each other trying to figure out who was going to be in charge.
So it's on its way, more or less.
It is on its way. It's just how long it's going to take to get there.
Yeah,
is part of it. So
but that part is very exciting.
It's really interesting, because I recently had one of my friends tell me that I should train all winter. I did some races this year. I should train all winter, and just for fun, I should go try out for the national team next year. Yeah, for fun.
Yeah. So, what does that mean to you if you're going to train all winter? Because you have to talk about something else while we at that point is then. Because how would you fund it, and what would you do if you do it on a full-time basis? But you have quite a career alongside all of this as well, and I'm not saying that because you're sitting here, but you're a very unique and special individual. Watching you and seeing what you have done. So tell us a little bit about, you work for one of the large forest companies here, and tell us a little bit about what you're doing. Are you just working in the office? I know you don't.
No,
But,
so I work for Canfor Pulp in Prince George at their...
Can we see it from here?
Well, it's where we
Pretty
got...
close, eh?
Yeah, you might be able to see one of the stacks from here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I work at the pulp mill, and I work as an industrial instrument mechanic, which is, I work on the automated process system of the pulp mill.
Okay.
So I'm not doing the actual like engineering layout, but we do work with the engineers to produce our own, like to put in plans as for installations, as well as we maintain the whole system, the automated system in the mill. So from the computers the computer screens that the operators are looking at to the actual like instruments that are out in the field looking at the level of the tank.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I work not only on the computers, but I also work in the actual field, like out involved with the process of the actual mill. And we do craft pulping here. So we do a chemical cook here in order to actually produce our pulp.
Yeah, craft pulp is for building or making paper and different products from the paper, right?
Yeah.
And there are 3 or 4 pulp mills here in Prince George?
Yeah, I think there's 3 for Canfor for sure.
Yeah. And the 3 for Canfor includes one for Northwood that they called Northwood that was doubled in size, I believe.
It's
for all intents and purposes, there are 3 or one that's a double size.
Yeah.
So we got quite an industry. So what brought you into that trade? Because that's not normally a place. I'm not saying that it should or should not be. The more women are involved in trades and all these specialties, whatever they may be, the better I like it. I believe that's where the future is, and that's the right thing to do. But so what brought you into it?
I want to, this is gonna sound terrible, but I want to say like sheer luck a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know, I did 10 years in the forestry industry. Tree planting, doing surveys, working through the winter with other surveys. I ran a chainsaw up in northern Alberta for a little while. So I'd had a lot of like forestry industry experience. And then I applied, I got through, I guess, the tests. And I thought when I walked out of the interview, I'm like, they're never going to hire me. Yeah. And they called me back. So for me, I just always feel really grateful to be able to get into that. But my post-secondary from the university here in Prince George, like I didn't complete it, but I had a couple years of university from the University of Northern British Columbia.
What did you take?
I was taking a chemistry English double major.
Oh yeah.
So two opposites.
You have a very solid background. The reason that you had the 2 opposite, were you kind of searching for where do I go?
I enjoyed their interpretation of the English. Yeah. And then I really enjoyed the structure of the chemistry and making sense of the world around me. Like I also was getting a little bit further into physics. Yeah. So that background, it felt like it flexed my mind nicely. Yeah. Made me think on 2 different levels. Yeah, it
kind of stimulates you.
Yeah. But my education here got me in the door. Yeah. With Canfor, and then I I just overheard someone saying you should apply for this apprenticeship to one of the other guys, and I was like, oh, it sounds like they need someone to do it. I'm like, and then I walked out and I looked at the application and it was closing at 5 a.m. the next morning. So
not much time left.
No, so I asked a few friends and I called my buddy who was actually an instrument mechanic and asked him, and he said, if I can do it, you can do it. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I'll apply. And within 2 months of being at the mill, I think I'm in just under 3 months, I was in an apprenticeship. Wow. So I still hold the shortest period of time in the door to operations and onto an apprenticeship.
How long have you been with them now?
8 years.
8 years.
Yeah.
So you love it?
It's a love-hate relationship.
Yeah. So
but I can't say enough about what it means to have a 40-hour-a-week, well-paying job in Prince George, to have industry here. And I think that, that's really important to a community, and I'm not sure everyone fully understands that I can go to work and I can come home at the end of the day. Yeah. I'm not stuck in camp somewhere. So having these facilities here in Prince George is it's mind-blowing, and it's amazing for the people who are benefiting from it.
Yeah, and that's the interesting part about Prince George as well, and I'm glad that you brought it up because I talk about it all the time, is that, like the University of Northern British Columbia, Debbie talked a little while ago about Prince George was a boom town in 1965. And as I said again, is that the question was always, you talk to somebody and say, when did you get here and when are you leaving? That's not so now. It has dramatically changed into a regional center, which is an absolute fabulous place to raise a family. And then, Prince George is also an industrial center. It is a logistical center in terms of road access, rail access, air access, and it will, I believe, in the next 10 to 15 years, and maybe sooner, 5, 10, 15 years, it will dramatically further grow, and and all the things that you do. And I was sitting about a month or so ago, 2 months ago, I forget now what it was, but around the table in our boardroom of the Brink Group company that I own. We were sitting, and we had about 4 or 5 people around the table discussing strategic things for the company, and every single one of them was an alumni of UNBC, including me.
Yeah.
I got an honorary doctorate, but that kind of put me into but everybody else was sitting around the table, and that was the whole point that we were making when we tried to convince the politicians that we need a freestanding university in Northern British Columbia. And it was a battle and substantial, but we got it. The same we have done, with the College of New Caledonia. I was very involved in the Trades and Technology Center. My name is on it, actually. I'm really honored by that. And right now we are working very, very hard on the next step for this region and this community is to create a center of excellence attached to the College of New Caledonia that really deals with the emerging trades shortage that we have, and for existing trades, but also for the new trades that will be employed by capital and entrepreneurs that develop other businesses here that will be supplying from this location in particular products to the rest of the world. And what we need is those skill sets for the new, for the existing, for the new products, and research and development and all of that.
Yeah.
And so I've been working on that for quite a number of years, the Center of Excellence, something like BCIT, and that's a giant, huge organization, but that's what we need here, to start with that, build it up, and then gradually, because we have such an amazing location vis-a-vis the rest of the world in terms of being central. And we have the raw material, we have the commitment, we have the capital, but the one that would stop us or hold us back is access to a skilled workforce, and that's precisely what we have to work on.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited about when you talk about the skills that you developed both at UNBC, that you then put to work at Canfor, and and seeing more and more of that, I believe, as we go forward. But we have to invest in the infrastructure, meaning a center of excellence, into CNC and UNBC to develop those skill sets.
Yeah, it's definitely like getting the people here, getting them educated, and that exposure alone helps to keep people in the north too as well. Like there's people who come here to go to school just to simply get their education, but not everybody leaves is a big thing.
And it attracts capital, right? That build businesses here to say, my God, you have such an amazing pool of trades here and workforce. That is what attracts capital.
Yeah.
And then obviously on top of all of that, it's an absolutely beautiful, amazing location. I want to talk a little bit more about paddle boarding because I think it is just absolutely amazing. We have 2 major rivers here. We have the Simon Fraser that originates east from us here, winds our way through British Columbia, is the largest river, and then the Vancouver or the Lower Mainland region is the delta for the Fraser. Here in Prince George, the Nechako River joins the Fraser here
Yeah.
within a kilometer from, less than a kilometer away from us, 6-8 blocks away from us where we are sitting today. So are those the rivers that you are training on and that you use quite a bit?
So I use the Nechako for instructing. So
Okay.
like I'm a certified instructor. So I will, if other people
Paddle
are
boarding, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
if people are interested, it's they can take some lessons, and I start on the Nechako.
Tell them about the contact, how to contact you. While we're thinking about it.
So my business is Born to Board. So it's
Yeah.
like as if you're born, and the word to, T-O, and board like a paddle board.
Very appropriate name, actually. Born to Board. Yeah,
It seems to be working.
Have you got a website as well?
Yeah, it's borntoboard.ca.
Okay.
So you just type that into your browser and it should come up for you.
Yeah.
And so I'm also on a few different social media, like Instagram, it's the same. Like my tag is the same as borntoboard.ca.
Okay.
And then on Facebook, I go by my full name. Like my business is on Facebook, but it's still very limited.
Okay.
And then, but you can use my full name, Kimberley Kenyon, on Facebook.
Okay.
as well.
And how do you spell your last name again, just for the people that are listening?
It's Kenyon.
Kenyon. And on your website, do you have things about paddle boarding?
Yeah, there's different, like it talks about the different clinics and what to expect and what you can get out of them. And there's some photos throughout and little bits of description. To actually describe the whole sport, sometimes it's pretty hard. Like I have been writing blogs through.
How about YouTube? Is that another helpful?
Yeah, you could definitely YouTube some of it. There's some.
Because if I'm sitting here and I say, well, I like what she is doing, and I want to know more about it because I like to be underwater, and I wonder how do you do it. So key, just
a really good source is there's a company called AQ Outdoors.
Okay.
A and a Q.
Yeah.
Outdoors.
Okay.
And they're located in Alberta in both Calgary and Edmonton.
Okay.
There's also another kind of like branch of the same source in Smithers, just west of us.
Okay.
And they're called Aquabatics. And
Okay.
they have, so AQ Outdoors, on their webpage, they have a section called Knowledge.
Okay.
And there's everything from kayak fishing to paddle boarding to whitewater kayaking, how like simple basics about expeditions, safety gear, like things about different parts of like what you want to pack, like how to they even teach you kind of how to fry a fish if you caught it with your kayak or off your paddleboard.
Okay, so now I'm a young person, and I think I like what you're doing. They're watching this, what we are doing, our podcast, and they say, I'm interested in that. Step one is to kind of look at it, inform yourself a bit, and then the next thing definitely would be to contact somebody like yourself and start, getting informed, and then start getting some training from you.
Yeah, like
What happens then? The next thing.
So, like, if you're looking at getting training, it's usually you register online, like, and it sends an email through to either myself or to the other companies.
Right.
But looking for an actual registered certified instructor through the Paddle Canada program is pretty big up here, and using that as your basis. And then from there, like, they get back in touch with you and try and arrange. I know I did a lot of like private coaching too as well this year.
Yeah.
So it's just trying to get people who wanted to be on the water and wanting to learn and trying to fit into my work schedule and like their schedule as well.
Yeah.
So it became a little more flexible, which was really nice.
Yeah.
But some people will just have a list of what they have for courses and you sign up for one of those.
Right.
But the big thing is just realizing that, like, if you're interested, there's a little bit of a progression of steps in order to actually master and actually go safely move into moving water.
Yeah.
Just trying to go from a flat lake to a river, there's definitely some differences in equipment.
Right.
And like just safety knowledge in general, like you said earlier, reading the water.
Yeah.
Like there's a difference there between a lake, you don't read the water, a river, you read the water.
So I presume there's about 2 months of the year that you can do it because otherwise it's too cold. No, I'm
me or someone else.
No, I'm just saying that and tongue in cheek, saying that it's not, it's not that kind of a sport. They're saying, it has to be nice and warm. No, you do it and under virtually all conditions and all circumstances. Right?
I've been paddling since January.
Yeah.
I can't remember what day. It might have been January 22nd. Might have been my first day this year.
Yeah.
And it's because we have a warm spring. So we have a spring north of Prince George,
Yeah.
Livingston. Have you heard of it?
No.
So we have a spring north of Prince George that connects to the Crooked River.
Okay.
And it actually it's warm enough that it keeps the water open all year round.
Amazing. How come?
It's just an underground spring that's warm.
Amazing. How far from Prince George? I didn't even know. I lived here for 56 years.
I only heard about it like maybe 6 years ago myself.
Okay,
as to really.
Bad, yeah.
But it's not like a warm spring. You think you go sit in a hot
but
springs,
it keeps the ice out.
Yeah. I think it's about 45 minutes north of Prince George.
Oh,
it's up by Bear Lake, the little community
right by
Bear Lake. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, and you can walk into that. There's a little hike.
For paddleboarding, you get dressed for it. You have special equipment for it.
Yeah.
So as somebody wants to pursue that, then they become informed. They get involved with somebody like you, say for instance, and then now you have to buy a board, which is special, and then from there on in. You have to have an outfit. Then I would be worried about that the board escapes me because I fell off and the board disappeared. It's probably in Vancouver by now.
There's leashes.
Okay.
So like the basics of paddleboarding is you have a board, a paddle, and a leash.
A leash is what?
A leash. So a leash attaches to part of the board.
Okay.
And then depending on if you're on flat water, if you're on moving water is a river.
Right.
The flat water, you get like an ankle cuff, kind of like a surfboard, so it goes around your ankle.
Right.
But when you get onto moving water, you need a way to get away from your board.
Right.
Because you don't know if your board's going to become a hazard to you.
Yeah.
So if your board on a river decides it's going to go do something or go somewhere or be stuck somewhere that you don't want to be, you need to be able to get away from it. So on a moving water on a river, you have a leash that actually has like a quick release on it.
Okay.
So you can get away from it.
Disconnect.
You can
quickly.
Disconnect from the leash. You can disconnect
Otherwise
from the board.
It's dangerous. And I'm just making fun out of it, but I just wanted you to have the discussion so that people kind of understand it.
Yeah. So that's like a really pivotal point between flat water and moving water.
Yeah.
So and there's different styles of boards. Like you can get big, long boards, like you see, like if you go, people do kayaking on the ocean or touring kayaking. They have big, long kayaks. There's now paddle boards that are big and long and carry all the equipment.
Right.
And then you have like shorter, little ones that look more like surfboards that people use for surfing on the river.
Right.
And then so there's multiple different styles of paddle boards.
Exactly.
And then there's always the beginner friendly ones that are out there too as well. So there's lots of different boards.
Yeah.
And then paddles can range from being made of aluminum and plastic all the way up to being fully made of carbon fiber. And so you have your board, your paddle, your leash. And then one of the big things that people don't, everyone knows, social media is not good at displaying the safety part of wearing a personal flotation device, a PFD, a life vest when you're paddleboarding. A lot of social media displays paddleboarding as someone on a board with a paddle and a board, and there's no life vest. And that is I legally am not allowed to teach or take anyone near water unless they're actually wearing a life vest.
Yeah.
Because it saves
lives. And
lives.
you do yourself.
Yes.
You see, and that's why this is so important to know because, it is an amazing sport.
Yeah.
That once you go into the next step as somebody that is interested, then you have to understand the sport in terms of the equipment that is required and then the safety aspects of it because rivers require respect.
Yes.
Because they can be very dangerous, but at the same time extremely exciting if you understand them. And and then is it expensive to get into it initially? You're saying, okay, I like all of this, so will it cost me a lot or because you need probably a wetsuit or something?
Yeah, so wetsuits, if you think about thermal protection, especially in the north or in Canada, mostly anywhere.
Yeah.
like you can actually find, like, depending on how you're feeling, you can buy a secondhand wetsuit.
Yeah.
Like you can find secondhand gear to
Right.
help limit the cost as to like how much you really want to invest into the sport.
Yeah.
So that stuff is available. But yeah, like thermal protection is another really big one, especially for the cold. And it goes as far as like if I'm paddling spring runoff rivers from the snow in the north here and the rivers are high, the water's really cold from that snow. So
Yeah.
I'm wearing a dry suit.
Yeah.
And that's when you start to see really big prices attached to things. But to
Yeah.
get started, there is a bit of an investment. It's not like you can go buy your Canadian Tire mountain bike and take it down the trails.
Yeah.
But in order to actually invest fully into it, it's hard to say how much, because some people have been able to outfit themselves basically enough for maybe $1,500 to $2,000.
Which is not excessive, right?
Like, and that's really basic. They've got enough to get by on the nicer days of the
Yeah.
weather when the
Yeah.
water's warmer.
Yeah.
And then there's people that will invest way too much money.
Yeah.
Which-
Yeah. Once they go further into all of it,
Yeah.
and then then from there on in to just, if you already have a good aptitude, initially when you and your partner started this, you getting into the paddleboarding, he was a kayaker. If you have somebody that is already familiar with water in some form or fashion, wants to go to the next level and saying, I want to really, in a serious way, enjoy paddleboarding, then there likely is no better places than Prince George to do that, right? Because of our two rivers and all the other areas around us.
So we have, like, in Prince George, we have, like, the Nechako to start on. The Fraser is really big and powerful, and usually most of the year it's fairly cold. So I don't spend a lot of time on the Fraser. But the access to the different locations from Prince George for this sport is really, really amazing. And we have a small river just, I think a direction here, east of Prince George. It's called the Willow River.
Yeah.
And there actually used to be slalom gates for kayaking. And there used to be a paddling festival, like a whitewater paddling rodeo festival out there. And hundreds of people used to gather at the Willow.
There used to be, or there is, or there should
There
be?
used to be.
Why
And
is
people
it
used
now?
The community came apart, the logistics in order to maintain the Whitewater Club and community, and the time commitment was becoming too much for the people that were involved.
Okay.
And it seemed like there's a generational kind of gap too as well.
Okay.
So a lot of the people who were driving that original club are now like in their 60s.
But it has all the elements in terms of the river is suitability.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic little river. It's as good as our little Willow River when it runs for its 4 to 6 week kind of time of the year. It's as equivalent as there's a river called the Kananaskis River,
Wow.
which the Olympic athletes train on outside
Wow.
of Calgary.
Wow.
It has equivalent features to that river. And it's like 30 kilometers outside of Prince George.
At one time, you and me talked about, the Nechako, where we are sitting here close distance between the two bridges, as you saying what we should do is create a competition here
Yeah.
on the Nechako, right between the bridge, right by our mill actually, and by my mill there, and then the bridge. And we kind of talked about it, and this looks good, and we should get Prince George involved, and blah blah blah. Did you ever do any more with that idea?
So I've been in touch with the marathon canoers who have done a marathon race down the Nechako, like traditionally and prior to COVID, every single year. So I've been in touch with them about organizing on the same day as them to have a downriver race, and then to have like a recreational race too as well for the community.
Okay.
And to have a stand-up paddleboard race. So there's been talks throughout the communities, and I'm trying to organize, because south of us in Kelowna, they're in Vernon, they run a stand-up paddleboarding competition over a weekend, and they're looking at doing it in early July next year.
Okay.
So I'm trying to figure out when they are going to run their race so that I don't land on the same weekend as them, but I still
maybe
haven't.
piggyback it.
Yeah, and then so I still have a weekend that's not overlapping.
So that may just happen. Who do you talk to about that in the city of Prince George? Or?
I haven't been in touch with the city yet because I'm going to be working with the canoers, and I want to make sure that we're both stepping forward to it in agreement before we move forward.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea
Yeah.
for Prince George, and that would again add something to the sport, and it'd be very, very good for Prince George, especially if it is something that's annually.
Yeah,
You
it
know,
would
so,
be a lot of
yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I know. Like you talked about it, we're excited about it too as well, and I want it to happen. I just know what my workload was this summer, and suddenly it felt like I was I was drowning in instructing and training, and
But it's still very much on your mind.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
it's definitely on the radar.
Yeah, because
for sure.
I thought it was a great idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now the other thing that sometimes happens, with paddle boarding, which is all delicate equipment, but it's all very special, and everything that you have, the paddles are, the boards are, and then all of a sudden a little accident happens, and tell us a little bit about that.
So I managed to get myself a professional race board this year. So I competed on it in September on a couple races.
Yeah.
And so I spend time practicing on this thing. And I'm used to plastic boards or inflatable boards that I can just, if I wipe out paddleboarding, you're gonna fall. Like it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna hit the water at some point.
Yeah.
Well, I wiped out pretty hard, and my race board now has some reconstruction to do to it because I fell and my shaft of my paddle hit the board pretty hard. Like I wiped out pretty hard.
Is the paddle special too?
Yeah, the paddle's really special. The paddle is from you guys. And like,
because I remember, let's just talk about it because it shows you, but you're so unique, so special to us because you were talking about it. And, I was interviewing I forget what it was, but for our athlete of the month, it was before that. Anyway, so, and you said to me, you want this paddle, but some of these things, especially when you're reaching the super level, are quite expensive, and so you have been. So I said, I get it for you.
And that paddle's been. I love that paddle so much. Like I that's the paddle I reach for constantly now. Like it's the paddle I want to paddle all the time, and like that's just what happens. I think in a progression of sport is you start with your I bought the all-in-one kit, and now I'm buying the paddle that's worth the same price as the all-in-one kit. Yeah. And it's and I like the weight of that paddle. The paddle is so light, like it's unbelievable.
It's special, and you're saying, well, the paddle is a paddle. No, it isn't. No, far from it.
Yeah, so it's fully carbon fiber, and then on the blade of the paddle itself, it's actually indented slightly. Yeah. So it's got this power. They call it a power pocket. Yeah. But it's super special. Like I don't the amount of my body is so happy with it. It's amazing.
Amazing how it all kind of fits together. So now you got a hole on your paddle and your board. So you got, is it fixable or? Yeah. So you kind of fix it and repair it.
Yeah, I've got a couple friends that also race that are very, very passionate about the racing portion of paddleboarding, and they've sent me a list of what to get, and then the first steps of what to do to sand it down and expose just how much damage I've actually done. Yeah. And then we'll start putting the fiberglass and the weave and then the epoxy and start to try and repair. Right. I have a friend who does carbon fiber work too in town.
Okay, perfect, right.
So I'm going to get in touch with them. Yeah.
So now as you look forward, what do you see yourself doing, going towards developing your skill sets more? Obviously, as you do now, you're already very, very good as a paddle boarder, and working towards more competition potentially, and so how do you kind of look on that part forward?
A really big thing to me is first thing I say, what do you look forward to? And it's community. Yeah. I would love to see a sport that I feel blessed and honored that my ex was able to share with me and give me this unbelievable excitement, this wild water ride, like
Right.
just help me build these skills.
Yeah.
And like now I look to and see like what do I look forward to? I look forward to building community and to hopefully
Yeah.
inspiring other people to get on the water and to enjoy this sport and to realize that rivers can be safely navigated.
Exactly.
And that they're like that little bit of that, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
what's going to happen?
Yeah.
Or it's getting rough,
Yeah.
can actually be like excitement that you can actually play in that.
Yeah.
So that's when I look forward to that. It's like, what do I look forward to the most is being able to share that with people.
Yeah, and getting closer to nature and understanding it
Yeah.
and reading it. All of that is developing a passion for it, and it is very exciting once you get to the learning process.
Yeah.
In particular, I presume.
Because I think there's some people that get onto the lake and they're like, oh, well, just paddling around on the lake, but it's like the river is just a whole nother world.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to like competition and training, like my friend just sent me a message today and it said, I'll pick up your indoor trainer while I'm in Tennessee. So I'm actually getting a paddleboarding indoor training like machine from like, it's in Florida right now and it's going to make its way to Tennessee. And then from Tennessee, it's going to get brought back up to Calgary. And then I'm going to get it from Calgary to Prince George.
Amazing. And what is it?
It's a pro kayak erg SUP trainer.
Okay.
So it's literally, it's a platform that's got like some balance wobble to
the
it.
motion. Yeah.
And then it's got a flywheel, like a rowing machine.
Okay.
But then it's got all the attachments and it has its own like SUP paddle.
It's kind of a simulator.
Yeah, it's a simulator.
Simulators.
So like you'd use
action.
a rowing machine in the gym
Yeah.
to practice rowing. It's literally a gym machine for stand-up paddleboarding. So I've got one of those for when the water freezes.
Yeah. I'm very interested in staying clse to you about getting this going in Prince George because be very much supportive of that. And then the other part in terms of your career, you're well settled into the career part, so things are very balanced for you. Career and hobby and training others, and then looking forward in a very positive way.
Prince George like gives you that opportunity to actually have work and lifestyle balance. Like you have work-life balance here, and that's something that's really important to me. And like where I'm employed, it's like if I ever complain about that place, like somebody please like make me kick stones down the road and like because like I couldn't do what I'm doing if I didn't have the job that I have, and if I didn't have the support from the community. Like I look forward to trying to grow more of the community and give back, especially like looking at the race is daunting. Like it's in the back of my head and it's daunting, but I know it's there and it's something that Prince George could definitely benefit from, and the community could definitely have a really good time with. Because when people see me training, like I don't train downstream on the Nechako, I paddle upstream on the river to train. And so it just kind of boggles people's minds when they see someone on a river on a stand-up paddleboard paddling upstream. And then they start to get this. Then when we tell people I paddle Whitewater Rapids on a stand-up paddleboard, their mind just it's more mind-blowing to them because I don't think people know yet. So that's something I look forward to, is the excitement of like let's look at this is fun.
So that's why it is so interesting in talking to you about this sport, that a lot of people because we got a lot of young people but also middle-aged or whatever that enjoy the water and never quite fully understand paddleboarding. Is it what is the acronym? SUP, right?
Stand-up paddling is the acronym for SUP. So some people say like, oh, do you SUP? And like some people are like, SUP what? And so it's trying to even get that understanding going. But like you say, any like people middle-aged, like anyone can do it. Like this, like if I can do it, I think anyone can do it. And
then it becomes a question of where do you want to be, how much of a challenge you want to have. But the whole learning experience of developing the skill sets, the knowledge, and being on the water and all the things around it are very unique.
Yeah, it's fun. That's all I have to say about when it comes down
Yeah.
to it.
I always enjoy talking to you because you have this passion about all the things that you do, your job, your paddling in Prince George. So it is an absolute delight to have you as my guest.
Oh, thank you,
for
John.
having you.
Thank you so much, John.
Yeah,
It's
thank you,
wonderful.
Mike. So to our guest, Kimberley, a very unique individual, in Prince George, talking about the beautiful surroundings that we have in Prince George, and amazing outdoors, and then for her as a paddleboarder, an athlete of excellent performances, has done amazing things and will do amazing things in the future. So, be very pleased to have her as part of our podcast today. Thank you very much.